Welcome to the Empowered Money Girl, where we break down the barriers to financial confidence, celebrate women's wins, and reveal the secrets to living boldly. I'm your host, Josette Mandela. Today's guest is Gina Zimmer, the Senior Vice President of New York City Operations at the New York State Restaurant Association, where she's a respected force in both B2B and B2C marketing. With a powerful background from Fordham Gabelli School of Business and years driving sales and strategic partnerships, Gina's known for her talent building, new businesses, securing customer loyalty, and cultivating high-performing teams. If you're ready to discover how to thrive in fast-paced industries and forge connections that matter, you're in the right place. Please welcome the accomplished, inspiring, and innovative Gina Zimmer.
Good morning. Thank you. Great introduction.
You're so welcome, and I'm so glad you could make it today. So can you take us back to the beginning? What was your path like to where you're at today?
Sure. After college, I graduated. It was one of the worst recessions, so I got a job. My dad actually helped me, and I remember I made $18,000. It was in the fashion industry. I then had the opportunity to go back to graduate school, and I went to Fordham and got my MBA. I went full time. Hindsight, I think I probably would have gone at night, because I think the more work experience with an MBA can only be more helpful. Going for law or PT or something that you really need to understand the science or the rules, so to speak. I think an MBA coupled with work experience can only provide better results. But I was given the opportunity, and it was terrific. When I graduated, I knew I did not want to work. I specialized, my concentration was marketing. I knew I did not want to work in a lot of the people I worked with went into banking, and, the marketing of different things in financial services just didn't excite me that much. I lived in Manhattan. I think I was the only person that left Manhattan to go work in Westchester. So I was taking the train outside of the city, and I fell into the food service business, and it grew from there, but it was an industry that I never really thought about. Most people think of food, they think of restaurants and grocery stores, and this was the side food service, which is a part that I'm still very active in today. It's those businesses that serve food, but it's not their core business, whether it's a hospital, a college or university, a corporation, a museum, a stadium. And most people don't really, it's not what you think about. You think about going to the grocery store or eating at a restaurant. So it was a whole new side of the business, and I really fell in love with it. And it started my journey to where I am today.
Well, that's cool. And like you said, that's not a side of the business that I really think about either. And I worked in a hospital when I was going through college, because it was a great job, and they needed people on weekends and holidays, which fit in perfectly with going to school and working part-time. And of course they had food, and I always thought the food at the hospital that I was at was great. So
good to hear. A lot of those organizations, some of them will do it. It's called self-operated, and others will hire organizations, and that was kind of the bulk of my career, where I worked for a company that provides those services. But I'm glad to hear yours was good.
That's really interesting. So, at what point did you decide that I want to be more? I'd like to go into leadership and do something more than what I'm doing now.
Excuse me. The job that I kind of left the city for, I had reached the pinnacle of really where I felt I recognized that I could go no further there. And so I decided to come back into the city. I had a desire to work in advertising, and I was able to get a connection and work there. It was short-lived. I think what I thought it was going to be and what it was were two different things, but it was great experience. And then, as you said, I've had years in the business, and being that I've been in it so long, I answered a blind ad in the New York Times, and I faxed my resume. That really dates me. And I didn't know what the company was, and I'm somewhat of a rule follower, and I missed the deadline the first time, so I didn't send my resume. I saw it in about 2 months later. You know, every Sunday you'd get the Times, you'd look at the Sunday Style section, or at least I did, and then you'd look at the want ads, help wanted. And so I saw the job open again, and it was for a very large contract food service organization. It took about 4 months to get the job. They had over 600 applicants, and I got the job. Can you imagine 600 faxes coming through in an office? I don't know that I realized it then getting the job. I knew I needed something else. I didn't even know what the company was because it was a blind ad. But once I got it and I realized who they were and the value that they had in the industry, I think that really propelled me to want to stay in the food service industry. And I felt that it allowed me to have my passion for marketing and my passion for the industry and work together, which really was a marriage made in heaven.
It's funny how those kind of things all fall together, and and the fact that you missed the first time, but then the second time you were able to get in, and to beat out 600 other applicants. Wow.
Well, I don't know. I never saw their resume, so who knows? But I think marketing, I think a lot of people apply, and being a blind ad, I think they probably got more than if you knew specifically what it was about. But that really, it really fulfilled what I wanted to do. And I'm a big believer in being happy at work. I don't just show up. I think people get a paycheck and are just happy to have a place to go. If I'm not happy, I cannot stay where I am. And I've been very lucky that I really have had some incredible opportunities that work for me. You know, maybe they don't work for anyone else, but I was truly happy and fulfilled. And I think when you're fulfilled, it's very easy to give 110%.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a firm believer of that as well. And I've said that at a number of jobs. You know, I'm here as long as I'm fulfilled and happy. The minute this job gets boring and I'm not happy here anymore, I'm out of here. And
Exactly.
So along those lines, so how would you define financial independence? Is it based on your job or something else?
Sure. I think I look at it as two different ways. I think from the job, and maybe this is very tactical, but when you're able to have enough money out to put a little bit in savings and start putting something for your future, I think that allowed me to feel financially independent. Being able to, for me, purchase a home, starting the savings, putting money into a 401k, that was a forward path. Where when I was much younger, I remember very vividly times that I couldn't do things, in my 20s with my friends. I just didn't make enough money to do that. And so being able to have extra, and then, I think to me, financial independence has levels, and they're different at different times in your life. Because you have other responsibilities or more expenses. But I think that from a purely dollar for dollar, having the ability to know that I have something in the bank for, whether it's for a rainy day or just for if I need it for an emergency, I think that for anyone starts your financial independence, because then you can make decisions on a job. Maybe there's a different job that you want that doesn't pay as much, but it's a path that you want to go down, and now you have some money in the bank to do that. That allows you to make decisions. If you don't have money to pay the bills, it's very hard to, it's Maslow's, hierarchy of needs. But I also think financial independence, another way I thought about it was at work, really negotiating for what I want, feeling like they're not telling me what I deserve. I'm telling them what I deserve. And I think that over the years, I really thought at review time that I was going to get, I did let everyone know I'm doing a great job. Aren't you going to give me? And then you get a 3%, or, maybe that's the standard for everyone. But if I was doing extra work or really putting in stretch assignments, I thought maybe my boss would give me a promotion or more money or a different title. And I think you don't get it without asking. And I think that was a really hard lesson for me. I think it's fine when you think about it, because they're in a business, so they're not in the position to just hand out money. But I think you have to be bold enough, be independent enough to ask for it. And I think I developed a good strategy with one particular boss that allowed me to continue that throughout the rest of my career.
That is such smart advice to really look at when you go in for that review and say, hey, boss, I know that the standard this year is 3%, but look, I did this, and this on top of my regular job, and then negotiate with them. That is so smart. So what kind of relationship do you have with money today?
I think it's changed over the years. Truthfully, I don't want to say I don't care about money. I don't, money doesn't drive me. What drives me in relationship to money, when I am working on a new role, I negotiate very hard for myself. The worst they can say is no, but at that point, money is very important because it defines my value. And if you're not willing to pay me, whether it's money or other benefits, and I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that it's not always about dollar for dollar. There's other ways you can get rewarded, but then money is extremely important to me. Once I get my paycheck, once we collectively agree on what my package is, then I don't think about it again. Because at that point, as I said earlier, I've only worked successfully in roles where I've been very happy. So it's not about the money every single day. Even though I've been in sales roles, and there's something really nice at the end when you win that opportunity. But I grew up very middle class, very educated parents, but they didn't care about money at all, or material things. I certainly care much more about material things than they did. But they were frugal, and we didn't always have a lot. Both my parents very much believed in doing what made them happy, and I think that resonated with me. And so my father quit a job. He was a principal of a high school, and actually the high school closed. And so he started his own business. There was not a lot of money for many years, but my parents were fulfilled and happy. But I know that there wasn't always money to do extra things. So I think now my relationship is with my husband. I think I very much volley between living and enjoying life and having this great dinner and going out and maybe spending too much money on something or an event. And then on the other side, being responsible and trying to set a good message for my children and recognizing you don't want to waste money, and you want to put money into savings, et cetera. But I think between both of us, things have happened in our life. His father passed when he was very young, and you don't know how much time you're given, so you want to enjoy it now, but not to the point of recklessness. But it's a hard thing to balance.
Yeah, I love that balance, that when you're negotiating for that new position, money is important because you want to get the value, but that once you have that position, it doesn't consume you. That and
Exactly.
You look at what you can do with the money and say, okay, this is how we're going to work with what we have now. Exactly. And passing it on to the children so that they understand where things are going too, because there's far too many families where that dynamic was money is some kind of secret that we don't tell anyone else about, and then the kids are like, what do I do when they get their first job? And
exactly right. Yes. My daughter just got her, so it's been a funny, it's like that Friends episode, who's FICA and why are they taking all my money,
Exactly. So do you actively invest?
I personally don't. My husband does a little bit. I'm trying to get my daughter involved, and there's, I forget the app, but it's, if you like Sephora, then you invest in Sephora. If you drink Starbucks, you invest in Starbucks. we have someone that helps us with, some 401k and other monies, but it's not something that I personally, I find there's so much to know and understand. But we do as a family. I'm just not particularly engaged.
And that's fine, because in your family unit, you're looking at investing and growing the wealth rather than just using savings
Absolutely.
accounts.
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. I'm just not in charge of it.
And of course, you bought your own home. So to
Yes.
me, that's
Yes.
an investment as well.
Yes. Yes. I think that's, for us, that was something that was important, both for an asset, as well as, putting roots down and having a place for our children, et cetera, and, having a place that they call home. Yeah.
So what kind of advice would you have for someone that's just starting out and they want to build security, wealth, but lately they've been relying on a partner because either they didn't have good training at home, or they just aren't feeling comfortable. So do you have any advice?
I think I've always worked. I have 2 children, and I really only took off my 3 months. It also dates me to show how the only time that I got off back then was 3 months with each child. I think being able to make your own money, or not being able to make your own money, is something that I think women need to get around. I don't think it at this point, it doesn't matter where you went to college, et cetera, but there has to be something that you're able to do. If your partner cannot continue to support you, what are you going to do? For me, it wasn't a conscious choice. I didn't meet my husband until my mid-30s. I was well on my way in my career, and I really love working. I don't know what else I would do. I would probably eat all day, so it's probably not a great thing. And I do that a lot with my job anyway. But I think that building financial independence, even, I don't think you have to go from 0 to 100,000. It's how can you do something on a small level? I think it's very cliche, but if you find something you love, the money will come. Find your passion and figure out some small way. I think with ChatGPT and all the resources now, there's so many helpful tools out there to guide you to start off slowly. If you make $10 today, it's more than you had yesterday. So I don't think it's about figuring it all out, but I think it's about building slowly and having the ability to stand on your own. My mother was she went to Columbia. She was an Ivy League graduate. For the bulk of my parents' marriage, when they were raising us, my mother didn't work because they didn't have a lot of money. So I didn't get this. It wasn't that I had this mother that was, this career woman. She did eventually go back to work part-time, but even with that, I had a sense of my mother that it was very important that she knew that if she had to go to work, she could. They collectively made a decision that they wanted someone to be home with their children. And that was a decision that, they were both on board with. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's such great advice too, is that just because right now you have made the decision to stay home with the kids, for example, or take care of the parents, whatever the situation might be, that you should take a look at, what could I do? And like you say, these days there's even part-time jobs that you could do online. So there's even ways around I'm homebound
Exactly
to
right.
get a little income coming in, so that you're not solely reliant on your partner.
Exactly. And I think, Josette, one of the things you and I talked about, my mom, as I said, so she didn't really work for many years, full time. And she was a nurse. And in the 70s, I have a very vivid memory. She actually was, when I was a little baby, because she wanted the discount at Macy's to buy my clothes, she was the nurse at Macy's, which I don't think many people know that there was a nurse. She wasn't very busy because not many things happen to people working at Macy's. But she had a Macy's credit card. And I went with her one day up to like the 7th floor where you used to pay. If you remember back in the day, you had to write a check out and, it was like a bank teller and pay your bill. And she switched her credit card because it said my dad, Mrs. with my dad's name. And she changed it to have her name because she told me I'm not Mrs. Michael, I'm Mrs. Sabina Zimmer. And it's funny. I mean, I don't think I was older than 7 or 8 years old, but I remember going with her to have that credit card changed. And it clearly meant something to me that I'm still remembering it, 50 years later.
Yeah, and like you say, there's so many women that are probably listening to these podcasts that don't even realize what a big deal it is that as women that we can just go fill out a form and now get a credit card, because before the mid 70s, women could not get a credit card on their own. And that's why your mother's card said Mrs.
Yes,
It
exactly.
did
Michael
not.
Zimmer, exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, we've definitely come a long way, baby.
Yes, we baby. Exactly right. Exactly right. Yes. We can now bring home the bacon too.
Yes, we can. So I'm guessing that based on everything we've talked about, that you believe that money that women should definitely have money of their own, and that they shouldn't just rely on someone else to take care of
Um, yes, I do. But in the way, it's funny. I think in my marriage, everything is shared. And maybe that's surprising. I don't believe marriage is transactional, and I to each their own. We listen. At one point, of course, my husband and I had separate bank accounts when we started, and we merged. I think that getting married is very easy. Getting married to the right person is not so easy. And so it took me a while to marry the right person. And for us, it's a relationship of trust. And we also understand in terms of spending. I think to me, it's more important that I know I can make my own money, that I have my own money. I truthfully don't ever worry about my husband doing something, or that I don't have the ability to pull money if I need to. I work, I'm an equal partner and I have a good job. So I come, I think, with a different set of thoughts. I'm not worried that if something happened to my marriage, that I don't have a way to have an income. So I don't have my own money, as surprising as that might sound. But I have the ability to make my own money. So if something did happen today or tomorrow and we had to split it up, I would be pretty okay, because I know that I have money coming in. But we are not the family that believes, well, you'll pay the mortgage and I'll pay this. Let's split dinner. We go into it if something is going to happen and I'm going to get, if this is not going to work out well, I'd rather have given my 110% in for love and felt that this was a trusting relationship. I don't think people start a relationship thinking this is the person I'm going to get divorced from. And so I went in thinking, we have a solid relationship, and I don't want money to be something that I'll do that with my boss or anyone I work with. I don't want to do it with my husband. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it works for us.
Yeah, and that's I love that philosophy, and like you say, it really depends on the couple which way they decide to go
Yes.
with that. Because
Yes.
as you mentioned, I know plenty of women that do what you were just saying. That, honey, I'll pay the mortgage and you pay the
Yep.
electric bill and the phone and all
Yep.
these things, and that's how they split it up. And then there's other couples where they have a common pool where they put all the money in, and then each of them have their own separate accounts for
Yep.
their fun money.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the couple, and again, it's that communication is really
Correct.
key to
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah.
getting into the relationship. You need to be having these conversations because, like you say, I don't think most people go into marriage saying, this is the person I'm going to divorce. They're going in with the hope that this is for life. They
Exactly.
really want a especially women, we really want that and believe that this is it, that
Yeah.
we are in it for the long haul and we expect this to work out. And
Yeah. To me, and I think I know for my husband, if we had separate accounts or I was worried what he was putting in, that's saying I don't trust him or us. And I would rather get hurt at the end for giving it all and finding out that he did something wrong than start out as a transactional or business relationship. I have no issue doing that with anyone at work, but I won't do it at home. And it's worked for us. It's 20 years, so we're doing okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, I'm at 10. So, but that's because the first one, yeah, not so good.
All right. Well, but you course corrected, right?
Yes, I did.
See, and you figured out what didn't work, which is equally as important.
True.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, obviously, I was young and naive when I got married the first time, and I went in there thinking this is Prince Charming, and then, yeah, he turned out to be a toad. But
but you went in all in, which for me,
yes.
I don't know. I don't know how, if it worked, how it wouldn't have worked if you don't go in thinking that this is the best thing, and then you found out, and you wouldn't have met your husband now if that hadn't worked out. So everything
True.
happens for a reason. I'm a big
Yep.
believer in that as well.
And yep, and I have to believe there, well, I know part of the reason was because now I'm doing this, which is
Yep.
helping women learn about basic financial skills. So
Absolutely.
I had to go through that fire in order to
Yep.
get to the other side so that I could really be helpful to women and help them get through and maybe even avoid the
Yeah, exactly
challenges that
right.
I went through. So
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yes. I think that's terrific.
so what's next for you? What ambitions still drive you forward?
Great question. I still think there's probably one more big role for me after this. I don't know what it is. As I've gotten older and gotten more seasoned, I think something that's really important to me is mentorship, whether it's formal or informal. And I think a lot of times informal works out much better. It's somewhat depressing because it realizes that I'm old enough to be a mentor, which I try to think that I'm not, but helping those that are significantly younger is really important to me. I started something in my current role, helping emerging leaders or creating a community for them. I don't have a ton of hobbies outside of work that take up a tremendous amount of time. So I always imagine that I'll be working in the industry in some way. I think post my children finishing college, which I have about 8 years until that happens. I think I'll do some sort of consulting in my retirement. But I love the industry. I mean, it's a fun industry. It's about dining out and trying new things. And I imagine that I will always do that in some form or fashion. But I have now gone from for-profit to non-for-profit, and I'm enjoying where I am right now. But I do think that there's probably one more big role for me. What that is yet, I'm not sure.
That's really cool. Seeing that being in the future of truly being a mentor and helping others
Yeah.
get into that industry and show them how, hey, this is fun, this is why you want to do it, and this is the things to look forward to. That's lovely.
Yeah. This has been a great way to, kind of dip your toe into that, to give people advice on, as you said, your mistakes and the things that worked out well. I think it's so important, whether you mentioned earlier with your children or with my children, sharing about making smart money decisions. My parents, did for us as well. I didn't know how much money they made or anything like that, but explaining that if, you can't afford it, you shouldn't be buying it. I didn't always listen to that when I was younger. But I think really giving, it's the same idea as like people that don't give out family recipes. If I like it, why wouldn't I want to share it with you? Is my philosophy. And I feel like if I did something good or bad, and it really helped me, or I made a big mistake, which is what you remember the most, why wouldn't I share it with someone else to prevent them from making it? And I think that it feels really, really good, which is what hospitality is, helping others. And so I think I try to do that. I try to do that in other ways within my personal and professional life.
So if there was just one message you could give to women listening today about owning their own independence, what would it be?
I think it's what I had started to talk about. It's somewhat tactical, but I think it can be very impactful. It's really about controlling the narrative and controlling their narrative, and what I was talking about when you're going for a raise. Listen, outside of family money, women and men make money by working. And so one of the things, if you work for any entity that has an annual review plan, what I learned by making a mistake first was when I complained to my boss that I didn't get the money or the title that I thought about, what I realized was, and he was the head of the company, that there was a process. And if he agreed with me, he would have to go back and tell that board, that group, that we have to give Gina X more money, meaning that Gina won. I won the negotiation. And I think successful negotiation is about a win-win. So what I would do was 2 months before, everyone knows when the review was, 2 months before, I would meet with him and I would give him a plan as to what I wanted to do. I wanted to add this role to my title. I wanted to add this responsibility. I also wanted to add this salary. That way it allowed him to be the hero because he looked like he created something and that he was innovative, and it allowed me to get more money. I know it's very tactical, but there's ways to impart that in other parts of someone's work life, but it allowed both of us to feel good. He didn't have to look like he got shook down by me, and I got what I wanted. At the end of the day, what I really wanted was more money, and I wanted a title as well. But as I said, I only really cared about the money when I was negotiating for the new role. Once I got that, then I worked as hard as, whether I got it in full or not, but I wanted to feel that my value was being there. And I think controlling your narrative, knowing your value, and being smart in how you ask to make sure you're receiving that is really, really important. And I think it takes planning. Just like strategy for work, you have to have a strategy for yourself, and you deserve the time to sit there. And as we said earlier, ChatGPT, go on ChatGPT and ask for 10 other ways to get more money or more benefits out of your company. There's other ways. Maybe they can pay for your commuting, whatever it might be. There's other things you can do, but if you're not going to fight for yourself, I can tell you no one else is.
Oh, that is so smart, having that conversation a couple months ahead of time and saying, this is where I'd like to go, and can you help me? Can I get there?
Yep.
What do you see that I need to be doing to get to this next level? And then, like you say, making your manager the hero in this whole situation so that they can see where you're going and they can actually plan ahead and actually ask HR or whoever they have to talk to get to that, to free up some money maybe so that
Exactly.
they could give you that bigger raise.
Exactly.
Love that.
Yep. Great.
So I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and a huge thank you to Gina Zimmer for sharing her wisdom and energy with us. If you found value in this conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the Empowered Money Girl with your friends. The more we spread these stories, the more women we can empower to live boldly, both financially and in every part of life. Until next time, keep thriving. And remember, your journey to empowerment starts with you.